Hello everyone and welcome again to this SQL course. So here in this lecture we are going to learn how we can change some things in our table, particularly in the table structure. So here I'm going to show you, for example, how you can drop a column, how you can rename a specific column, and even how you can modify a data type of a specific column. The script that we are going to use is these 3 deleting columns and altering tables that is contained in the SQL for Absolute Beginners for creating and modifying tables folder. And here we are going to continue with our table countries, which is the one that we have been using so far. Okay, there you go. We have France, Spain and Canada. This is a compound on the last lecture where we deleted the row with the country name Portugal. Now imagine that I would like to drop the country name, for example, here from this table. How can I do that? Well, there's a really simple command, which is the alter table. Now the alter table command is a command that is a generic one to modify something in the structure of the table. And in this case, I can use alter table countries.countries, and then I can give extra instructions to this alter table. Namely, I'm going to use the drop column. So the drop column is a sub-instruction inside the alter table. In this case, we have more things that we can do with the alter table, as we will see next. With the drop column, what we can do is just remove a column from the table. If I do drop column country name, and then run this, I'll have a successful query. And now if I go to select all countries.countries, I no longer have the country name. So this is the instruction if you want to drop specific columns. We've seen how we can delete specific rows or drop specific rows in the past lecture. Here we are seeing how we can drop specific columns. There might be other things that we would like to do. For example, changing the data type of a specific column. That's also relevant with the alter table command. Again, remember that alter table is like an umbrella term to encapsulate something that we want to change in the structure of our underlying table. And so here what I can do is another instruction, modify. With modify, I can, for example, change an underlying structure of a table. In this case, imagine that I would like to change my population to small int. I use modify, space, the name of the column that I want to change, and then the new data type that I want to change, or in this case, the data type that I want to change my data column to. Do you think this is going to work, changing this to a small int? Let's see what SQL will tell us when we run this instruction. So we have an error. Why do we have an error? Because we have values in this countries.countries that overflow a small int. Right now, this column is an int. So we have here, for example, 65 million. As we've seen in past lectures, the small int can't support numbers this large. So in this case, when we try to modify the column, forcing it to be a small int, we can do this because we already have values in the column that we can't fit in the small int data type. Okay, but what we can do, for example, I'm going to copy this instruction. Let me describe the table right now for you to check what's the data type that we have right now in this column. So checking with the describe, what we have is what? An int, so an int data type. If I do a modify to a big int, for example, now the big int is the data type that comes right after int. So it even holds larger numbers, so we will not have a problem because right now, all the values that we have in the population fit inside the big int, because if they fit in the int, they will definitely fit inside the big int. Now we've changed the column type. If I do describe again, what we'll have now is a big int, because I've ran this code, alter table countries.countries, and modify the population column to a big int. In this case, it's this instruction right here. So I hope this was clear. See how we've changed the underlying data type of the table. When we've done conversions, when we even done implicit conversions or insert new rows that contain different data types, we never changed the underlying column. We never changed anything in the data type. We would or create a new column that would have a new data type, or we would get an output with a query from our result. Now here it's a bit different, because here we are changing the table itself, the underlying table, and all the queries we will do on this table will now return something with the big int data type because we've changed the underlying table. Make sure you are aware of that difference when you are running code that's returning a query and when you are running code that's changing the underlying structure of your tables. Everything that we consider physical tables, there are tables that we can see right here on our database. Another thing that I might also do here with the alter table, as you might imagine, is that if we can take columns out, we can also add columns in. So I can add column, a new, for example, name, and then what I can do is, for example, varchar 20. And now if I run, or let me call this country name, makes a bit more sense. Okay, so I've added with add column inside the umbrella alter table again. I've added a new column, and right now what we'll have, if I go here, select countries.countries, I'll have 3 columns, but the last one is always null. Why is it always null? Because this was a new column that I've inserted right after the table was created. Now, there will be some instructions that we'll see in the future of how we can update these rows with the if conditions or with where conditions, as we will see. But in this case, we are just going to leave this country name as null. Now, something that I advise you to do, for example, to experiment, is to create again this table with all the countries that we had and the country name, and try to do modify here to a varchar that doesn't fit the number of characters that you'll have in there. You'll also see that you'll have trouble and an error in MySQL by the same logic of changing an int to a small int when the values that you have on that column already overflow the small int data type. So try that for yourself. You also have those experiments in the scripts in the course materials, but I'll let you do them also for yourself for you to train these instructions. 2 last things before we leave. Here with the alter table, we can also do something really cool. Here, alter table, countries.countries. Then I can do change column. So you might have noticed also that I'm doing these instructions sometimes in uppercase, sometimes in lowercase. Ideally, one would do them all the time in uppercase. That's a best practice. But here, as I'm teaching at the same time, sometimes I forget, and then I do everything in lowercase. So sorry about that. But most of the times when you have these instructions, particularly the ones that are highlighted in blue, it's a best practice to have them uppercase so that everyone knows that these are SQL syntax, or at least that these belong to SQL syntax. Okay, so I can do now, for example, country name will change to just country. And then I have to give also the data type. I'm going to do data type. It's exactly the same. Now what I'm doing is renaming my column country name to country. This is what this instruction will do. And then I also have to give, when I do this instruction of renaming, always saying the data type up front also with this instruction. So that's also mandatory. And that's why we have here, you can use the same data type when you are renaming a column from one name to the other. Now, the cool thing is that I change the name of the underlying column in this table. If I go here, right now, the column that I had with country name is called country. And this was how I renamed the column, a specific column, here also with the alter table. So see how this alter table works, right? So this is an umbrella term that we used with sub-instructions that can do several things. Change column names, add new columns, modify the data type of the column, and also drop columns. When you use the alter table, basically know that you are changing the underlying structure of a physical table that you have right here. Another thing that you can also do with alter table is renaming the table itself. So if I go for countries.countries and I do the following, rename to, I can, for example, rename this to countries.country summary. This will change the name of the table itself. So now notice again, alter table, blank space, the table that we want to change, and then the underlying instruction, in this case, the rename to countries.country summary. Okay, I'm going to run this one and let's check it. Right now, it's called country summary, no longer countries. If I call select all from countries.countries, I'll have an error because that table no longer exists in SQL because I've changed its name. As I've changed its name, no way that SQL now understand what's the countries.countries. It only understands the countries.country summary. Okay, so now let's recap a bit of these alter table instructions. They are pretty important and probably you'll find them in a lot of SQL instructions. So we have the drop column that will enable us to drop a specific column. We have the modify to modify, for example, the characteristics of a column. In this case, we are modifying the data type of the variable or column population. Then we have the add column to add new columns. We have the change column if you want, for example, to rename a specific column. And then we have the rename to, which renames not the columns, but the table itself or the name of the table. So alter table is this brief umbrella term that enables you to do a lot of things with the physical table and change a lot of the parameters that you have defined on the columns or even on the table name. That's it for this part where we've investigated a lot of things regarding adding information, removing information, changing the underlying information of our tables, and also how we learned how to create our own tables from scratch. I advise you to do the next use case so that you can really practice these skills and learn to build these SQL instructions by yourself. After doing this, you'll be probably ready to start to create your own tables and modify your own tables. So that will be really important skills for you to become a SQL programmer. Okay, so I hope you're excited and let's go to the use case.